Young people are stakeholders in future in any country. So each one of you would be more interested as to what's happening in your society, the world in which you live, and how it is shaping. Particularly when you will move out of the campuses in this vast world to seize your opportunities. Many of you would be leaders in your respective fields. And leaders are not only political leaders, they do matter in democracies, but leaders in various fields of life. Each one is important because they make a creative contribution which they have over centuries. Therefore, today it's important to recognize the fact that change is integral. It has always been, as human civilization has evolved over centuries. There's no decade of the last century or the century before, when you look back, when important changes have not taken place. Sometimes painful developments, challenges, and sometimes human spirit, which has resilience and endurance, has eventually triumphed over those challenges. That is the story of your own country, a very beautiful country, like India, a civilizational one. We all in India, those who are aware of the rich contribution your country has made in the field of music, fashion, architecture, and also in the creation and sustaining of a modern republic. Directors started by referring to the father of the Indian nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you. Yesterday was his day of martyrdom. It was on that day that he was assassinated because of his belief, his principles. But he was born in India. He belonged to humankind. For his message is resonating in every corner of the world. It has an enduring relevance. What we are discussing today, the challenges that humankind faces, be it empowerment, environment, poverty alleviation, or sharing in a spirit of partnership within the countries, between countries, and globally. That was the message which he had given. I am one who is a believer in all those values that he espoused. And I am not in a minority. I am part of an enormous majority in the world who do believe in the same values. Particularly today, when we see enormous disparities, challenges of development, and also conflict, violence, hatred, and terrorism. The mind goes back to Gandhi. But Gandhi, I cannot claim to be a follower, because Gandhi was too tall and very difficult to follow. It requires a life dedicated to meditation if one has to be a follower. In this country, I have many friends, and I had met with one of your former Deputy Prime Ministers, Francisco Rutelli, who is almost my age, but when he was 25 years old, he had started editing a journal, Satyagraha. Satyagraha is the force of truth. That was the first call of rising Gandhi had given on 9/11/1906. The last century has seen two other 9/11s. And if I go few years more to the 1890s, then it makes it 4 9/11s. First was when one of the great sons of India had addressed the American nation, the people, the Swami Vivekananda in Chicago. But the only 9/11 of the last century which gives hope to humankind, message of peace and non-violence, was Gandhi's. And Gandhi himself was influenced by Mazzini, particularly when he started his newspaper Young India in 1919. Years are years, but come to think of it, 92 years ago. There have been many others who have influenced Indian minds, whether it was Garibaldi and Count Cavour, those who were the pillars in the creation of the modern United Republic, and many of India's own freedom fighters were influenced by the meditation of Marcus Aurelius. So how we have been engaged in the past and how we engage today becomes important. The numbers have been given both by Rajan Mittal about the Indian story, but also by Mr. Goldstein. The professors and the students are always fully abreast with the developments that are taking place. So what I'm going to say, you already know. What is important to remember and to recognize that India's story is not in isolation. We live in one world. We say it is interconnected, interdependent, which it is. Technology has broken many barriers. And there has been enormous transformation. We never thought, I'm sure the director, Egidie, the ambassador of me, and many of my generation present here, that we'll see what we are seeing in a lifetime. There was no television when I was growing up. Our children, the speed with which they work these gadgets, sometimes it's difficult to follow. So those gadgets have become part of daily living, whether it's the iPad or the laptops. Even laptop, PC looks personal computer, which is a great, great breakthrough. Today looks like archaic. That so fast have been changes. But these changes underscore the creativity of human mind and the spirit. This is the technological revolution which changed India. It was India's Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi, who's connected very deeply to this country by his marriage, who talked of 21st century India and of the new technologies which were coming. The wave of technologies came in the 80s and the 90s, and that changed India. Because our countries were left behind for historical reasons. Poverty, backwardness, underdevelopment are baggages of history. When the big divide came with the Industrial Revolution, and the countries which didn't access those technologies were colonized, subjugated. And it has taken those countries, which includes India as the largest democracy on the planet today, a long, long time to catch up. But India moved fast to straddle the big divide by climbing quickly to the top of the pyramid, not alone but with others, in accessing these technologies and becoming truly, yes, one of the global leaders in information and communication technology. But there are many other fields where our minds have excelled, the institutions in which we have invested over a long period of time. We didn't have the resources, but particularly the institutes which were set up, each one, from the Indian Institutes of Technology to Management, Science and Space Sciences, Nuclear Sciences, all came up soon after independence, the vision of one man, India's first Prime Minister and a great statesman, Jawaharlal Nehru. Today we are more than doubling those institutions. But we need more. You're referring about the number of universities, the engineers, the doctors, the scientists, the PhDs in mathematics and science which are coming out of Indian campuses. China is producing more. America is still many times more than both of us. So is Europe when you put it together. And that's where we are making our investments. To ensure that we fulfill our own aspirations and ensure that we continue to grow at a fast pace. Our country and the emerging economies have been the force of stabilization and growth in the world. We were the engines of global economic recovery. When contraction was there, very severe in Europe, in Americas. Many of you here would understand economics more. But the severity of the crisis differed from region to region, but adversity embraced everyone. Fast-growing economies or an industrialized world. And the recovery is uneven, it's wobbly, it's weak, it's jobless recovery in many countries, which has to be borne in mind. Therefore, need of greater cooperation between governments, industries, and also institutional linkages. What is important for us to take our growth to a higher level? We hope to grow anywhere between 8.5% to 9% again this year. I remember before the crisis, we were growing consistently at over 9% for 5 years. And many of my interlocutors, I was not Commerce and Industry Minister, I was Foreign Minister, and they used to say, well, that's great. What more do you want? Yes, we want more growth. And we want to sustain it there for decades to come. We are home officially to 1.1 billion. Just a mild correction, Rajan, we are $1.67 trillion economy, or creeping close to 1.8. That's a figure which a visiting head of state gave just now, but that's the pace at which we are growing. But still, for a country of India's size, it's small. What is a must for us to ensure, as Rajan said, inclusive growth, sustainable growth. Growth cannot be sustainable if it is not inclusive, if the benefits do not percolate to every section of the society. If India is home to one of the largest middle class in the world, maybe more than the population of United States of America, at the same time, we are still home to a very large number of poor people. And that's where the redistribution of wealth is a must for us. That is one principle of Gandhi that my government is firmly following. If we have generated resources, we have redistributed resources. We'll continue to do that. And that's why we need to create more and more and more wealth. Not only for individuals, human minds, there has been this by nature acquisition of priority. But for the leadership, it's the other way. India has been able to create one of the largest social security nets ever created in human history by any country in the smallest period of time. 100 days of work and wages is a constitutional right for our people today. Enormous amounts, even if you have to talk in billions of dollars or euros, are being spent in creating opportunities in rural India. Gainful employment and sustainable incomes for millions of people. We know that we have to spend more in education, but we are retaining more children in school, particularly from poor backgrounds. Parents are happy to send them there. It's not only that education is free, but children get cooked meals. 130 million children are fed. The number keeps on rising. Because it's important to nourish the kids, and like many other regions of the world, malnourishment has been also one of the painful realities of this baggage called poverty, whether it's sub-Saharan Africa or other countries. And that's what India wants to change, to build a global partnership for growth, but growth which is shared, which is fair, which is equitable, and a new political and economic architecture in the world which reflects the contemporary realities. In the next 2 years, the economies of Europe, India, and America will be equal-sized. The GDP of Asia today is contributing more than 50% of the global GDP or the global growth. I'm talking annually. But that is also going to change very fast. And the emerging economies' GDP is going to overtake the GDP of the G7 countries. And it's true, of the 5 major economies of the world, hopefully in my lifetime, if I have to live that long, I do not know, because one can never be sure. But for majority of the people present here in this university hall, you will see that of the 5 major economies of the world, 3 will be Asian economies. That's again a reality. Therefore, the order which came after the Second World War and frozen there has to change. The President of FICCI has given you all the details about the investment opportunities in India. Yes, ranging from the high-end technologies, pharmaceuticals, where we are one of the world leaders producing 1/4 of the generic medicines of the world. Half of the Fortune 500 companies have their research hubs in India for their IT solutions. Infrastructure building, 550 billion we are spending in the ongoing 5-year plan. 1 trillion will be the minimum investment that will go in the next 5 years. Agro-processing, food processing is another area which will take in billions of dollars. There was a reference made by Mr. Goldstein about our science and technology. Your country has inherent strengths when it comes to manufacturing, technologies, designing, fashion. And that's where institutional linkages become important for research, for innovation, as the world will see another wave of technologies in this decade. And that's what we should be looking for, collaborations. What we call the green technologies, the clean technologies. India wants to be one of the workshops of the world for these technologies. That is my dream, shared by many of my countrymen. And to be a manufacturing leader, that's where we are going to take determined steps. We are already doing so. If we are seeking investments, we are investing all over the world. And that's the new confidence of our corporate leaders. We have an investor-friendly regime. I'll answer your questions, so not go into details. But just to say one thing, on space a reference was made. It's true that we are one of the global leaders. We're the most competitive when it comes to launching satellites of other countries. But it was in the year 2008 in April, India made history by sending 10 satellites in space. Big satellites, medium-sized satellites, nano satellites made by university students in my country, also in Europe and Canada. Using a single Indian launch vehicle, 10 satellites in 1,000 seconds in 10 orbits. First country in the world to do that. We do not want to sound immodest. There are other countries which have more strengths. But those strengths are meant to be shared, and that's what we are seeking, an enhanced partnership between our two countries in this changing world. Thank you.